The Edmonton Oilers' undoing in the Stanley Cup final was their defense. It's time for an in-depth look at the Oilers' blue line.
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Wednesday edition of Locked On Oilers. I am your host, Nick Zararis. I want to thank everybody who makes Locked On Oilers their first listen of the day. Locked On Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sport stops sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So visit FanDuel.com to get started and get in on the action. Today's episode, we're expanding off of yesterday's episode, which was just about Darnell Nurse. And we are going to talk all about defense in the NHL in 2024 going into the 2024-2025 season. We're going to talk about macro trends league-wide in terms of defense, goaltending, save percentage, power play opportunities. We're going to talk about the context in which defense is played today. We're also going to talk in the second segment, we're going to talk about where the Oilers can find ways to improve their defense and through better transition play, which is kind of the key to defense in today's NHL. And then the third segment, we're going to talk about what the Oilers defense looks like right now, going pair by pair, player by player. So in the abstract, I do think it's important we lay out the context, the foundational ideas of this conversation, because when we're talking about something as big as just defense in hockey, there are a lot of subjects within that there are a lot of sub-subjects off of that big topic. You know, we can talk about technique, we can talk about scheme, we can talk about development. There are so many branches off of that big idea that you don't want to muddy the waters and you don't want to misconstrue where we're going here. So we're going to talk about a little bit of everything coming off of that. So the first big topic I need you to understand listening to today's episode is that this is an offense-first NHL. Over the last 10 to 15 years, the NHL has made a conscious effort to get scoring up because that is the prevailing sentiment amongst the professional sports leagues, regardless of sports. We want action, which typically correlates to more offense. You look at the other sports, scoring in football came down last year after a few years of it going up consistently. There were rule changes to kind of give the defense a little bit more of a chance, but over the last 15 years, you've seen an offensive boom in football. Basketball, obviously, you are seeing less defense than ever played in the NBA. And then in baseball, an incentive was put on in putting the ball in play, getting rid of the shift, making the bases bigger, only allowing 2 throwovers to incentivize stealing bases to try and facilitate more run creation, as opposed to just waiting for home runs. And in hockey, there's been a few approaches. Number one, increase in power play opportunities. So when you look at the numbers, and I went back and looked, over the last 10 years, the average NHL season has been about 245 power play opportunities. The high of any point in the last 10 years was 2015-2016 at 255. It has never been lower than 237, but the caveat there is when I did the math for 2021, which was the 56-game season, we had to prorate it, so there were X number of power plays in 56 games. We scaled it out and did it up for if there were 82 games with that rate. And then the following season, 2021-2022, 237 as well. The NHL wants penalties called because they know that's going to generally lead to more offense. We have seen power plays hover around 20% now for the last handful of seasons. The low point on power play conversion rate, 18.66%. That was 2014, 2015, and 15-16. And then the high point of the last 10 years was 2022, 2023, 21.31. The building block and why you need to know this is not just environmental factors is save percentage has continued to go down. Save percentage has either gone down or remained exactly what it was the year before every year for the last 10 years. In 2014, 2015, the average save percentage was 911. Now, this past season, it was 898. That tells you the shooting talent in the NHL is getting better. The power plays have been relatively stagnant, but we are trending upward over the course of the last 10 years. Goal scoring is generally pretty stagnant. And then shots on goal is pretty stagnant. 10 years ago, 2014, 2015, you had 2,453 shots on goal. This past season that just finished, 2,483. So the shots are relatively static. The goals are relatively within range, an average number over the course of a large sample. The power play opportunities are relatively within the same range. Power play opportunities are relatively within the same range. Save percentage going down, shooting percentage going up means the average NHL player is getting better. And I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. You look at where the NHL was at 10 years ago in terms of speed and skill. A lot of teams still featured 2, 3, even 4 guys who weren't good skaters, who were just physical, who were there to forecheck, to try and cycle the puck. And whatever they gave you offensively was just kind of a bonus. And that gets me to the first point that's about defense itself. So we're operating under this logic that the average NHL forward is getting faster and it has a better shot every single season, that the threshold to remain in the NHL is getting higher and more difficult every single year. So when we talk about defensemen, we're typically going to put them in one of two boxes. They typically are big or they have puck skills. It is very rare for someone to have both. Victor Hedman is going to go to the Hall of Fame first ballot, one of the best defensemen of the last 10 years, one of the best defensemen of all time, because he's big, he's physical, and he has offensive instincts and can move the puck. Same deal with Chara, where really unique skill set, extreme outlier in terms of skill set. For the most part, teams have to prioritize. Do I want a big defense or do I want a defense that can move the puck? If a defenseman is bigger, that typically means they're slower. That's just the way physics are. The bigger you are, the slower you are, and the harder it gets to get moving because you need to generate more force to move more mass. I'm not a physics guy, but that much I can understand. The new age defenseman is kind of a paradox. You have guys like Kevin Ball, Keandre Miller, Noah Dobson, who are big, 6'3", 6'4", 230, 220, 230. But they're not physical. They like to use their stick to break up plays, and they try and use positioning as opposed to their body to take away the puck. And it creates a weird situation now where defensemen are being prioritized that can move the puck, but teams don't want to totally move away from having big defensemen. So you get these lopsided pairs where it's one guy who's really physical and big but can't really skate, with somebody who's really good at moving the puck, but small and can't really defend, because teams are trying to have one of each. Ideally, you want one of each on each pair because they correlate to a skill set. We have the puck mover and the puck retriever. Those are two typically different skill sets. That's what makes a Cale Makar, an Evan Bouchard, an Adam Fox, a Quinn Hughes, a Charlie McAvoy, a Miro Heiskanen. And that's what makes those guys so special is they can go get the puck and they can move the puck. For the most part, most defensemen are one or the other, or they're very skewed towards one of the two if they have some traits that are commiserate with both. In today's NHL, there are very few players who are well-rounded. To get to the league, teams at the developmental state typically emphasize the trait a player is best at, whether that's shooting, skating, playmaking, physicality. At that level, at the junior level, those teams just care about winning. It's not necessarily about developing a player to get to that next level. Some programs are better at that than others, but for the most part, those junior hockey teams or the European professional leagues, they are concerned with getting those guys as good as they can be, which means maximizing the traits they are the best at, which typically means focusing on that one thing. And that's why you get guys who aren't so well-rounded when you get to the next level. Coming up next on Locked On Oilers, we are going to talk all about transition play in the NHL today. So be sure to stick around to this episode of Locked On Oilers, where we've got your team covered every day. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and a whole lot more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Thank you to everybody who's making Locked On Oilers part of your Wednesday. In the offseason, you want to talk about these big philosophical ideas because it helps drive how you're thinking about the team going into next season. I think I feel very comfortable in saying the defense was the Oilers' weakest link last year in the postseason. And against quality opposition, good teams are going to exploit your weakness. And yes, I did have some concerns about Stuart Skinner. But as that series went along, the Cup final, he did get better. And that means if you can get slightly better defense, you won't need Stuart Skinner to do as much. And his threshold for success becomes lower. And that, I think, creates a little bit more of a well-balanced team where, you know, if you go back and listen to the episodes from during the Stanley Cup final, I was very adamant that as long as Stuart Skinner didn't need to win the game himself, the Oilers would be able to hang around. And if you can get that to that more consistently and play less defense, because that's ultimately our goal, because players are getting better every year. They're faster, they're better shooters. It is harder to play goalie in this league. And that means the less defense you have to play, the better. The quality opposition you're going to see in a conference final, a Stanley Cup final, those are the teams that have, you know, 3 or 4 guys that shoot 14, 15%. And those guys, because they're better shooters, they can take lower quality shots and they can still end up in the back of your net. You know, for the vast majority, you know, for 99% of the league, that shot from the top of the circle, the goalie is going to have a good chance to stop that. For when you're playing the best in the world, when you're playing a Nikita Kucherov, when you're playing a David Pastrnak, they can make that goal go in a way that most humans to ever live can't. So in talking about defense in today's NHL, I still maintain the position that the most important trait is being able to move the puck. Yes, there is value in size. Yes, there is value in speed. But if you cannot move the puck, you are a liability. The Oilers' inability to move the puck after winning it was ultimately their undoing against the Panthers. The Panthers are a surgical forechecking team. When they get their forecheck going, other teams cannot break the puck out against them, and it helps them wear down the defense. And it's why, even though the Panthers are a volume shooting team, and I want to say they were like 24th in the regular season in 5-on-5 shooting percentage, they still managed to score a lot of goals because they were able to maintain zone time for so long, so consistently. So all play flows through the neutral zone. That starts in the defensive zone. Can you win the puck? I shouldn't even say that. Can you get to the puck? Then can you win the puck? Then can you move the puck? And can you move the puck to somebody who can break it out, or can you skate it out yourself? It's a 4-part process of recovering a loose puck. And some people are good enough at data tracking that they can keep an eye on this, that they manually watch every game. They log puck retrievals, puck battle wins, zone exits. Do teams target them in the neutral zone as far as trying to get around them? And I'm going to read you. So, in order, the Oilers who retrieve the puck the most that lead to exits: Brett Kulak, Evan Bouchard, Ekholm, Nurse, Desharnais, Ceci. That's most retrievals that lead to exits to least. Who has the most botched exits? In order: Darnell Nurse, Ekholm, Bouchard, Kulak, Ceci. That starts to paint a picture. If Ceci can't recover the puck, the Oilers can't exit the zone. So next up on that list is Does the defenseman treat the puck like a hand grenade and just move it for the sake of moving it? Or do they exit with possession? So, clears. This is just getting rid of the puck, sending it through the neutral zone and hoping it doesn't go down for icing, most to least. Nurse, Ekholm, Kulak, Ceci, Desharnais, Bouchard. And then exits with possession. Bouchard, Kulak, Ekholm, Desharnais, Nurse, Ceci. That tells you that tells you a very clear picture. And this is a case where you watching the game at home lines up with what the underlying numbers tell you. You know Cody Ceci struggles at breaking the puck out of his own zone. He struggles at winning the puck in his own zone. And that makes it more difficult for the Oilers to go from defense to offense. You think about Darnell Nurse's struggles in the postseason with players getting around him, forcing him to turn the puck over. And that gets me to one more stat. We have one more stat I want to talk about, but I want to make sure you understand what I mean by all of this. So when you think of defense, if the other team dumps the puck in, Evan Bouchard turns around, or Matthias Ekholm turns around for the purposes of consistency and what happens more often. A team dumps the puck in, Matthias Ekholm turns around, he goes behind the net and recovers it, and then he tries to get the puck to Evan Bouchard because he knows Evan Bouchard's going to be able to put that puck in a better position for a forward to be able to make a play so the Oilers can go from defense to offense more quickly. It is the most valuable skill set in the NHL today on the back end to have blue liners who can move the puck. You look at the types of guys Florida prioritized in assembling their group. Forsling is a little bit of an outlier because he's a little bit of both, but he's a lot better at retrieving the puck than moving it. Ekblad is a bit more of a retriever than a mover, but that pair works because they're relatively balanced. Montour, strong skater, good puck mover. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, strong skater, good puck mover. And then they complement that with Mikkola, who's big, physical, and can go out and recover pucks, and Kulikov, who can go and recover pucks. Then you think about that in comparison to the Oilers, where Bouchard is clearly a quality puck mover. I think he's at worst the 7th or 8th best defenseman in the entire NHL. Ekholm is one of the best defensive defensemen in the entire NHL. I think he's probably about 6, maybe 5, depending how you feel about Uyghur, about Gus Forsling, about Chris Tanev. But both of those guys are upper echelon. And then you get into the concerns where Ceci struggles to move the puck, Nurse struggles to win the puck. So in a vacuum, you understand what the Oilers are trying to do, putting those two guys with each other. Nurse is big, and he's supposed to be physical. He should be able to win the puck. Ceci's a good skater, which means he should be able to get the puck out of danger. That didn't work, though, because Ceci's not good at moving the puck in the defensive zone. He turns the puck over a lot, and he doesn't win loose pucks if he turns the puck over. So it creates kind of a self-defeating cycle. And then the third pair, hit or miss, depending on the configuration, if it's Kulak, if it's Desharnais, if it's Broberg, who, I think Broberg is almost assuredly going to start out next season playing with Nurse on his offside, and I think they're going to go out of their way to accommodate Nurse and try and minimize his responsibility and try and manufacture some better play out of him by changing the context of his play. But that is something we're going to talk about in the next segment, so be sure to stick around to this episode of Locked On Oilers. I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games. And the sports, they're not sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster of bonus daily. That's right, so there's something for everyone every day all summer long. If you're bored, throw $5 on something like the over in a baseball game tonight. The Nationals are playing the Mets. Patrick Corbin has the highest ERA in baseball of any pitcher over the last 3 years. That's a prime opportunity to have some fun, to sit back, have a little bit of fun, root for both teams because you only need runs. You don't need a team to win. I personally am a big proponent of doing that, betting on the over when I go to a game, because that enables me and my friends to kind of just have fun and roll with it, as opposed to sweating who's going to actually win the game. So if you want to have some fun this summer, head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thank you to everybody who's hanging out on this Wednesday edition of Locked On Oilers. I love talking about hockey in an academic sense. I love breaking this stuff down and talking about this, how you would address a topic, and not enough people think about sports in that sense that we don't have a defined truth. We're trying to get closer to a better truth. And that's the way scientists talk about science. And that's the way I try and think about hockey, that I'm never going to be able to know everything because the game is constantly moving. It is constantly evolving. And because of that, you should always be wanting to learn more. And that's why I like doing these big macro subjects, because I can throw a lot of information at you all under one umbrella. And it gives you a greater perspective than what you might just hear on the broadcast or what you may previously think. And everybody's experiences are different. If you played growing up, if you didn't, if you watch on TV, if you play the EA Sports video game franchise, everybody's got different perspectives on what's functional and what's important based on their experiences. We are always the summation of our life experiences. So with that in mind, you think about where the Oilers are at as a team. For the last handful of seasons, they've been able to score more than enough goals in the regular season that it's not really an issue for them, that they are competitive, that they can hang around with anybody. And then once you start getting to the end of April, you get to May, you get to June, the offense does what it can, but when there's less room, you have smaller margin for error. And the ultimate undoing for the Oilers in a game where there was not really a lot of margin for error was their defense's inability to make an impact play. And I think it's important to highlight the fact that Bouchard and Ekholm were the best defensive pair of any defensive pair in the entire NHL playoffs. They had the best results, underlying numbers wise, expected goals wise, of any defensive pair with at least 150 minutes. And they had the most 5-on-5 minutes of any defensive pair in the entire playoffs. And that lines up, Ekholm and Bouchard play a ton with McDavid when they're out there, the five of them as a unit, to try and tilt the game as much as they can. And that's kind of, I don't want to call it your get out of jail free card, but it's your eraser. It's your trying to find a way to maximize what you're good at. Like we were talking about before in regards to junior or Europeans, men's league teams, those teams are trying to win. They don't care about development. So the Oilers see an opportunity matchup-wise, playing Ekholm with Bouchard, with McDavid, with Hyman, and then whoever the other winger is. That gives them an opportunity to directly control the game with not a lot of input from the other team because it's hard to get the puck from them. And that's the key. The reason that pair works so well is they can go from defense to offense quickly. If you force Evan Bouchard to play defense in his own zone, he's not going to be nearly as effective as he is when he's transitioning from defense to offense or helping influence the game in the offensive zone. Conceptually, this works. Bouchard, elite puck mover. Ekholm, elite defensive defenseman and puck mover. Then you move on down to the second pair. Right now on paper, that's Darnell Nurse and Philip Broberg. I don't know how easy Broberg's transition to playing on his offside is going to be, but this is part of trying to maximize what Darnell Nurse can do in his current state. Nurse is not particularly good at actually playing defense. He is targeted at one of the highest rates of any defenseman in the entire NHL for zone entries, and he gives up the blue line a lot to make up for his lack of foot speed. He will drop back really deep, which gives the other team the opportunity to both build up speed skating at the net and B, get a better angle to go around him to begin either cycling the puck or taking the puck behind the net and forcing a defensive breakdown somewhere. So that's something you really want to keep in mind as far as evaluating Nurse is, does he find a way to get better positioning to make up for that lack of foot speed as opposed to playing it hyper conservatively? Because there are good defensemen who play hyper conservative defense. Rasmus Dahlin, Charlie McAvoy, they concede the blue line a lot defensively, but those guys are better skaters. So they can make up for the fact the other guy that's coming at them with the puck is faster, or at least has built up enough speed that they are skating full speed. Those guys are able to make it work. Is there a world where Darnell Nurse can make that work? I don't know. Can Philip Broberg transition to a top four defenseman who's playing with a defensive liability as a partner. It's a really tall ask for a guy's first real prolonged NHL look to be, we need you to be the babysitter, the puck mover. Oh, yeah, and you're not going to play with McDavid a lot because we want to have him out there with Bouchard a lot more. So it's a difficult recipe. And then the third pair, Kulak-Ceci is fine. In an ideal world, the Oilers find a way to replace Cody Ceci because his skill set, it's oxymoronic. You know, he's small, he's a good skater, but he's not good at moving the puck. He's not good at actually playing defense in terms of positioning. So he's carved out a 10-year NHL career as somebody who's just a good skater. And because of that, the Oilers are in a position where they have to keep giving him chances because they're paying him and he's probably hard to move. And without an improvement in his puck skills, you're probably always going to be frustrated because his positioning defensively is not there. He's not physical. He doesn't win loose pucks, and he turns the puck over a lot going from defense to offense, which makes it hard for any partner he's out there with to be successful. Oh, yeah, and you and Kulak are going to be playing mostly with the third line and the fourth line. So you're not going to have the get-out-of-jail-free card of, okay, just get the puck up to McDavid, get the puck up to Jeff Skinner, and let them skate the puck out of danger. You're going to have to do the hard work. You're going to have to skate the puck into a passing lane and then pass the puck out to whoever's going to be on that third line. And it's going to be difficult minutes, and that's ultimately why I think the Oilers are going to have to add at least one defenseman in season, because I don't see a world where this six-person configuration of defensemen is going to be good enough come playoff time, because right now, on paper, you only have one defensive pair that mechanically functions the way a quality defensive pair is supposed to. But that will just about do it for our conversation about defense on today's edition of Locked On Oilers. So if you could be so kind, please subscribe wherever you get your audio podcast. If you're on Apple or Spotify, please leave the show a 5-star review. If you are watching over on YouTube, hello, this is my face. Yes, you see those sheens of sweat. It's hot in the Northeast. It is humid beyond belief in the Northeast. Throw the man a subscribe. Throw the man the alarm bell. Get a notification whenever new content goes live. Leave me a comment. Rank the Oilers 6 defensemen in order of how much you trust them. If you have a funny comment, I will read them on the show tomorrow. Until then, let's go Oilers.